welcome. We want to thank Mr. Wise, Chief, for inviting Chief Glover to our establishment, which is R. Martin's Hair Studio. We welcome you here and hope that we can be a help to you as well as you being a help to us in this community to kind of bridge the gap between policing and community. And we just want to say congratulations on your appointment, and we wish you the best in whatever we can do to help. You've been more than willing. I want to acknowledge Chief Bill Watt, Pat Lewis, and some of our banking friends who gets this community. So, Chief, we'd like to hear from you.
I am elated to be Chief of the Lafayette Police Department. People in law enforcement don't understand how difficult it is to be a chief. We have 286 officers and probably got 286 opinions on what's the best way to do something. So that's the number one thing. But my priority is to make sure that the community is well taken care of. I spent, this is day 44 working. And I've spent my time in the community talking to people. I've been in the church community, of course, the radio stations. I've been in some community meetings. We are starting up a process in the Lafayette Police Department. I got my first report on it today. Everybody in the department, from me on down, are required at least once a week to get out in the community and do something. So the 4 precinct captains today made their reports to me, and what they did was acceptable, even down to a couple of them knocked on doors of elderly residents and making sure they were okay and passing out business cards and getting input on what type of problems they may see where they need to police that. So we're going to be doing a lot of that. We are definitely, in my opinion, on the threshold of doing something great because we are pushing community policing. And in community policing, this is it right here. When you do this, you get to a point where the community and the police department trust each other, and the police department becomes legitimate to the community, and it helps preserve our property values. It helps enhance safety and things like that. So I'm open to anything dealing with the community. I'm very, very much in touch with the youth community. I can't rap good though, but I can rhyme and Wallace, and they're going to set up something in this community for me to go and talk to the youth, and that's what I really want to do. I want people from, of course I want everybody, but when I say youth, I'm talking about 18, 17, 16, because we got to touch them right away, and that's what I really want to do. And I'm going to be starting, one of my goals before the year up is to start what we call a junior police academy. And I've asked all the ministers that I've met and people in the community, if you have young kids, or you have grandchildren, or you have people in school, we want to identify them as potentially a base for us to have law enforcement in Lafayette PD. And I tell people, kind of like baseball, a guy that's 25 years old that goes to the major leagues and start throwing a pitch 100 miles an hour, making tens of millions of dollars a year, the minute that person is identified, it's not when they sign the contract, it's when they 5, 6, 7 years old, and these people start following the kids all the way up through. They do it in basketball, football, baseball, and by the time they hit college and get a scholarship and get out, those players in the major leagues are already known by the clubs that sign them. I envision the police department doing the same thing, identifying people in Lafayette, particularly young kids, who we can say, great candidate for police, and let's put our hands on them when they are young, 9, 10, 12 years old, and start them to seeing the police motorcycles and the mounted unit on the horses, and seeing the Hummer and things like that that can attract younger people, and they become interested in police work. And so that's what I'm about, and I'm really, really pushing. I know Wallace is supposed to be helping me set that up, but I do want to get as many children out in the near future, whether it's next week, next month, the next 2 weeks, where we can talk and sit down, they can ask me questions, I can answer any kind of concerns they got, and I want to do the same for adults. We're going to do a Citizens Police Academy, and we're going to put citizens through some of the same training that police officers go through, have them to get involved in some of the same scenarios, and show them what happens, why a police officer might get out of a vehicle instead of walking to you up on the driver's side. They take the right and go around and ask you on the passenger side why they park the car a certain way, how they solve a crime, when they get a call, what happens. You know, all of those things. And by the same token, I do plan on holding members of the Lafayette Police Department accountable if things aren't right. And what I mean by that is I'm 110% in support of law enforcement. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been in it as long as I have. In 2 months, I'll have 40 years in law enforcement. I support law enforcement 110%. I'll go to bat to fight for benefits and pay. Councilman Lewis? I said pay. I'll go to bat for pay and benefits and things like that, and protecting a pension. And that same energy that I put into fighting for them, if I identify wrongdoing or misconduct, I'll put that same energy into making sure that they get corrected on it, get disciplined, and whatever the case may be. So I'm excited to be in Lafayette. You're going to see me around a lot. And anything that the police department is not doing right, communicate with me, talk to me. I've already acted on some things. I've had to discipline some officers. So please let me know what's going on in the community. And thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say that that community program is definitely needed, and we applaud your efforts to make the relationship so much better between the police department and our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, before the chief leaves, I had the opportunity to sit on the board to interview him. And out of all the resumes that came before us, this was the most impressive. I don't know if he has any more to pass them out, but this here I kept because it's very, very
This is my first time seeing one since I went through the search committee back in November and December too, so you hung on to it. That's
Yes,
good.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was very impressed.
Look, can I see it for a minute? Believe it or not, my daughter, who is my secretary and office manager, I tell her that when she runs my house, she put a lot of this together and came up with the ideas. And I'm just looking here. My leadership philosophy is in here. I'll tell you, one of the things in here that I put in here, that's the last 2 lines, and I really believe that it says, I follow the most important tenet of leadership ever conceived. Right is right, even when everyone is against it, and wrong is wrong, even if everyone is for it. That's the last line of my leadership philosophy. So, Wallace, thank you for showing this to me. I hope my daughter saved me a couple of them, but this is, I show things like this. I need to have it when people say, without a man to leave the police department in. This is my professional resume in terms of my training, command and management, employee development, law enforcement skills, things like that. And the last page too, that was most important. I did this at the last moment. It says, what you get with Thomas Guillory as Chief of Police: reducing crime, making the city safer, building trust with community stakeholders, promoting transparency and open management, recruit and retain top quality officers, and practice 21st century policing. My most important priorities: build trust outside and within the department, enhance police community relations, seek stakeholder buy-in. And you all are the stakeholders, people in the community. That's what we refer to as stakeholder. And this is a big one for me. And they get this message in the police department to the point where I think sometimes it angers them. It says require accountability and responsibility from sworn and non-sworn employees. Because we got 286 sworn commissioned officers, and we have 40 civilian employees in the department for a total of 326. And they all, I hope, getting the message. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having that, Wallace.
Yes, sir.
Keep it closed till you don't let it get out. Thank you. Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. When you say civilian, what do you mean by civilian?
Oh no, just non-sworn personnel that work in the department that are not police officers.
So what are they, volunteers or something?
No, they're actually employees, but they work for
They're just not officers.
Yeah, they're just not paid employees. They work in the, like the 911 dispatch area where they dispatch the calls or reports, property room, just positions like that, what we call support positions.
kind of similar to the fire department, with fire prevention, communications, and training.
Okay.
Those are not actual firefighters. Those are support personnel.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the same thing.
So,
The DAD program, we used to have that at one time.
Yes.
Maybe we could bring that, try to think about bringing that back, because that used to bring kids together,
Yes.
people together.
Yeah, the SROs, we got 22 school resource officers, and they are assigned to schools in the city or whatever. And I think they are prime candidates to, if not even a DARE, a program like that, because DARE was conceived in the late 60s, early 70s by the Los Angeles Police Department. And it broke off from being DARE, which is drug abuse, resistant education, all the way down to some people do what they call LETs, law enforcement training students. And so they're great programs. The school resource officers, which we have 22 of them, are prime candidates for them. And I will look into that and see, are they doing it now? I don't know. I know I was told that the Lafayette police officers that are assigned to the school, there's a contractual agreement between the school system and the city of Lafayette that we supply the office, and I think they, you may know, Councilman, I don't know, I think they supply some funding or pay some of the salary or whatever.
yeah.
But, okay, yeah, but we're gonna look at it, and I don't know when the contract is up. It's done on I guess, a year, 2-year basis or whatever, but when the contract is up, the only thing we'll be doing is reviewing, making sure that we got adequate people, because one thing about Lafayette, and Fire Chief will know this, we have 286 officers, like I said. This one is giving me a headache. We got 96 assigned to the street, and we got 190 inside the headquarters building at desk, doing other kind of work, and it should be the opposite. We should have 190 in patrol, so when you call, the response time is short, presence is out there, traffic enforcement, and so I'm trying to reverse that. And so far, I have identified 7 positions inside the police headquarters that will be put back into the street on the 21st, 22nd of March. So that's a constant headache for me, because the formula when you deploy police officers in a city is you start off at 50%, and you take 50% of your department and put them in uniform. If we did that, we would have 143. We got 96. So we are 47 people lower than what we need. And so that's why I say you're gonna hear some people may not be happy about it, because they no longer will have the day shift with weekends off or whatever. They gotta go back and get in the rotation and patrol, but it's the best thing for the community. And I told people, when I make decisions like that, I take the face off, the name, I don't know who it is, I look at the position and say, we need to send this back to the street, and it could be filled with an officer who's gonna be out there responding to calls. But that's a source of concern for me, and I'm addressing it. I've started out already. So far, I've only identified 7, but there will be more. We gotta put more people on the street, in the cars, answering calls for service.
But Chief, you must be getting a lot of opposition on that.
I'm getting quite a bit of opposition already. Last week, I was told that somebody put out a letter and put my name on it, but said, and it was after I took disciplinary action against an officer. It's already been on the radio show. I understand. I didn't hear it, but I understand it was on the radio show on Sunday at 11, and a couple other people are talking about it. But I had to terminate an officer, and believe me, that's not an easy decision for me. I put a lot into it. I don't just wake up one day and say, you're fired. I looked at what the officer was accused of. I looked at what our policy was. I talked to experts in the area of use of force, and I made a decision that it was an improper thing to do, and I terminated him, and people didn't like it. So there were some things said and done. So I'm working on it, but I'm gonna make the right decision that's best for the community. We can't have an officer that misuses force. We cannot, and it's a very serious violation for me. And the same thing, when I come in the community like this, one of the biggest things I've gotten from about officers' behavior is that the cameras are being turned off a lot. And I told the command staff today that for me, that's gonna go to, we have levels of severity for infractions like level 1, level 2, and level 3, and turning off the cameras will go to level 3. And it's the most serious, one of the most serious things you can do, and the consequences are the most serious discipline you can do. So we shouldn't have, those cameras are designed to be on to record. They cost a lot of money. Councilman Lewis, they cost almost $2,000 a camera. And you gotta have, you gotta have a server, storage space, you gotta have everything that goes with the support. And so to have someone to turn the camera off just because they want to say or do something is not right. So I will make that. And those are the types of decisions that will probably result in people saying that I'm not supporting, but I am supporting them. I'm supporting the good officers, which the majority of them are. I'm supporting law enforcement, but I can't support police misconduct.
I have a question. As it relates to community relation boards, it would be some groups are, I don't know what Lafayette makeup on the community relation board, if they have one per se, but are you open to working with them or for suggestions on how to improve the community relations, or when there's a bad shooting or a bad situation goes down? Will you work with them? Will you have some transparency to work with them? Or, like some jurisdictions, they just push them to the side like they don't count for anything?
I don't believe that the community should ever be shut out unless there is a legal reason to do so. What I mean by that, some of the things that have happened in the country in the last year or so have been on videotape, have been on TV, have been on the news, and they've gone around the world. And I can tell you that the incident in Lafayette, a judge intervened and said, no, you can't release the video, you can't identify the people, you can't do this. And if the judge tells you to do it, you gotta do it. But I believe in being open to the community as much as I can legally. Now, Louisiana has a police officer's Bill of Rights. I think it's been in the law since the 70s. And it affords a police officer extra step protections when they get accused of misconduct or whatever. And there are things in it that if I walk outside right now and I observe me as a chief, observe a police officer committing misconduct, I can send him home or her home on administrative leave, which means they still get paid, but I can't even have internal affairs talk to them, investigate it for 30 days. That's the way the law is. On day 31, it says that, you give them 30 days, they got a chance to get their lawyers, to get legal protection and all that. Those are the types of things that I think Chief Benoit from the fire department will echo. They make it very difficult to deal with the process of handing out corrective action or discipline when you observe misconduct. They get to wait, or they get to sit for 30 days before you can even talk to them. And that's the kind of thing that I think the community, if they get behind it, they can probably push it and have it changed, but it's law, it's legal. And you'd have to get our lawmakers in Baton Rouge to do it. I think some things can be done at the local level, but I'll be exploring that. And I want to address something you said about police community relations board, because there are two. There's one term when you say police community relations board, it means they oversee the police department and everything that happens in the way of discipline, corrective action, misconduct, those type things. That's where the citizens make up a group and they really hold the police accountable. It won't be, well, you're covering it up, you're hiding it, you're not being open with us, because the community relations board is in charge. The other thing that we do here in Lafayette, and we started it a week or two after I got here, the former Deputy Chief Reggie Thomas and we started back to having what we call community relations board meetings once a month, and we do them by precincts. We'll do precinct 1 and 4, which is the north side of Lafayette, then we do precinct 2 and 3. We're going to start combining those for the March meeting this month. But we've invited people all over the community to join that. The meetings I've been to, they're held at police headquarters. A cross section of people, a couple of dozen people show up from all professions, whether they're lawyers, teachers, people in the community, retirees, and they'll ask us questions and we'll talk about solutions, and they give us things in the way of ideas or suggestions that we need to implement.
Thank you.
One of the things, just to add on to what the chief was talking about on that Bill of Rights thing. It's because we're considered civil service classified employees with property rights. So you can't just come in there and just question them without going through the proper channels. So it's no different from the fire chief. If my guys across the street are doing something they shouldn't do, and I see it, I gotta call the immediate supervisor and have the immediate supervisor question them. And I gotta let it go through that process. And once they make a decision on, yeah, it's a violation, it comes back up to me. Then I look at it, and I look at the facts. And if I agree that there is a violation, and the violation is something that's gonna cost them to be suspended, demoted, or terminated, then I gotta send that back down to the review board with the charges or the allegations. Let them have a hearing, let them have an attorney or a representative of their choice present to be able to refute the actions or the allegations. And then once that's finished, that review board makes a decision. And all that review board is doing is saying either they violated the policy or they didn't. Then it comes back to me. If they say they violated the policy, then it comes back to me for progressive discipline. Then they get to appeal that if they get suspended, demoted, or terminated before the Civil Service Board. And the Civil Service Board has a lot of authority. And it's the Civil Service Board that governs the fire and police department. That's why sometimes when things happen more in law enforcement than in fire, the community is looking for answers. You can't get any answers. You know, if the judge says you can't give it out, you can't give it out. Because one of the things that could happen is an employee does something they shouldn't do. And they know that we have those rights. But the supervisor can derail that. Because if the supervisor does something intentionally that goes against the firefighter or the police officer's Bill of Rights, that person can get their job back. And the violations that were committed would go away. You see, so that's why you have to be careful and you have to be patient with the leaders when they are investigating those things. Because they want to give you what they can, but they can give you some stuff intentionally that keeps that person on the job.
So the Civil Services Board just take the power out your hands. So y'all just basically sitting there.
They don't take the power out of their hands, but they're supposed to serve as a neutral party to look at the facts and see whether or not the punishment fits the crime. Right. Okay, and if it doesn't, then they can overturn it. They can be more, give you more punishment, or they can give you less punishment, or they can just disregard it altogether. That doesn't mean that it stops there. We can take it to the appellate court, to the district court, we can take it to the appellate court, you know, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna win. Right. You know, so we have to pick and choose what it is we're going to take to the next level, because it's very costly. It's your tax dollars that we're doing that. You know, so we try to make sure that when we do something on the front end, we do it right the first time and do what the most reasonable person would do based on the facts, so that we can hurry up and resolve it. You know, but sometimes it doesn't work to our advantage because our hands are locked, you know, or handcuffed behind what the rules say we can and can't do.
Quick question. This is government. Public, how can y'all do it? And employees not doing what it's not supposed to do? Do y'all have to go through a system, or y'all can just get rid of it?
Get rid of them?
You know the Civil Service Board, one is an elected firefighter by the fire department member, one is elected police officer by the police officers in the department, one from ULL, I believe.
Yeah, ULL makes an appointment, the council makes the other two appointments.
Yeah.
That's why it's very critical that the council members play a part in making sure they put the right people on the board. That's going to do it.
Last question.